This fly is a blue-winged olive, and I'm going to start off with a size 12 dry fly hook, and the thread that I'm going to use is an 8/0 gray. And I'm just going to get a couple of wraps started on that. When it's secure, I can pull off the excess. And the wing that I use for this is a turkey flat. So I'm going to take a dun colored turkey flat, and I'm going to peel off a section that's going to act as my wing, straighten the tips or align the tips. And I'll just clean up the back of this so I have even ends. And so I can take that and set it right on top and just extend slightly beyond the eye of the hook and give that several wraps to tie it in. And then I can come back through and trim off the butt section once it's in and finish making my wraps behind. I'll bring the thread back up because I want to stand this wing all the way up, so I'll pull it back and begin to make kind of a thread dam in front of that so that it stays nice and upright. When I'm happy with the way that that looks, then I can advance my thread back to behind that section where I tied in the butts. For the tail, I'm going to use a dun dry fly hackle. So I've taken one of the larger sections of feather, and I'll take a clump of maybe a half a dozen fibers off of this, and I'll want it to be about a hook shank length. So I'll situate that and I'll tie that in right on top. Take it back to the bend in the hook, and then I can trim those butt sections off. Now I'll go between the middle of where my tail is and the wings, and I can start to dub the olive body. So I'm just using a dry fly dub in olive and create the body on this fly, a nice subtle taper to the wing. When I get to the back, I'll pull that so that it makes it tighter and gives me the look that I'm after. Get just a pinch more of dubbing here. And finish my wraps. And I'll take this just behind the upright wing, and then that's where I'll tie in my next hackle, which is again a dun hackle, same as the tail, but I'm going to take a section that matches the hook. So I'm using a size 12 hook, so I'll find a size 12 section of hackle. And once I've gotten that, then I can clean off the butt section and tie that into the side and secure it in the front. Then I can trim off that stem. And now with this fly, what I like to do is dub the entire body and then wrap the hackle through it. So I'll take some additional pinches of that Same olive dubbing, and I'll begin to make my wraps in front and behind that upright wing, and I'll tie it just to behind the eye. And now I can start to make my wraps of this hackle, and I'll do 3 wraps behind and 2 wraps in front, and I'll just pull that back and make my wraps in front, and then tie that in. Pull everything back, catch all those fibers, and start to build up my thread head to this. And then I can clean up around the eye. Careful not to cut off your thread. And this, with a handful of whip finishes, will keep everything in place. And I can take off that thread. Now you've got a couple of different options from here. If you want it to ride higher in the water, you can leave it just as is, or what I like to do to make it sit lower is I'll just take an even cut of those bottom fibers, and now this fly is going to ride lower in the water column. And I'll touch it off with a dab of head cement to keep everything nice and bound. And when I'm working with head cement around hackle, what I'll do is I'll load up my bobbin, and I'll just let it kind of run down the bobbin so I don't bind up too many of those hackle fibers. So that is the blue-winged olive. Again, you can leave the hackle on to make it ride higher, or as I do, trim off the bottom and it rides nice and low on the water.